Hello and welcome back to High School History. We're going to be looking at expected questions from Theme 2, Kings, Farmers and Towns. But before we go ahead, just to remind you that these are not sure shot questions. I have only estimated them based on previous trends, and if you score very well in your exams, do not limit yourselves to just these questions that I've marked out, but do a more thorough study. This set of videos is largely to help students who struggle with a huge syllabus and who find it difficult to score very well in examinations. This is just to give them a little boost. So without further ado, let's start. So if you turn to your page 28 to 29 of your textbook, there are two concepts that we're going to be talking about here very quickly. One is that you may get a statement saying that the broad contours of political history were in place by the early decades of the 20th century. Justify your comment or something like this. So basically all that you have to talk about here is that by the 20th century, most of the dynasties and all by now were known. The sequence of those dynasties were known, which king ruled after whom, which were the major wars fought. All of those had been put into place largely thanks to James Princip and his being able to decipher the Brahmi script. This could either be for a 1 marker or even 3 markers. You can also get a question on James Princip, who he was and what his contribution was to Indian history. Then when you look at page 29, there is a discussion of the 16 Mahajanapadas here. So you could get a question on how the 6th century BCE was a major turning point in Indian history. Now in this context, I would like you to bring your attention to another similar question which is usually asked from chapter 4, which talks about 6th century BCE and how it was a major turning point in world history. So one is Indian history from this chapter and world history from chapter 4. So read your question carefully and only then you will decide whether the question needs to be answered from the chapter 2 perspective or the chapter 4 perspective. And then there is also a quick discussion on some of the 16 Mahajanapadas and the different kinds of political systems they had. So whether they were monarchies, Ganas or Sanghas or oligarchies, and why they were called oligarchies, and an example of such a Sangha. Then when we move on to page 30, you can get a question on what were Dharma Sutras, who wrote them and why they were composed. Now this could come as a 1 marker or as 3 mark questions. So then you will talk about how it was the Brahmins who were composing, probably urbanization of the 6th century BCE threw up new needs, new challenges, and new law and order situations where Dharma Sutras now made sense. This again could come for 1 or 3 marks. Page 31, you have a discussion on why Magad was the most prominent of the 16 Mahajanapadas. There are some 5 or 6 points marked here. This most likely, if at all it comes, it will come for 3 marks. They have not asked this question in a while, so there's a very high chance that this question may be asked in different forms. So unless they have already given you how many points they want, so if the question says, well, mark out 3 reasons why Magad was the preeminent Mahajanapad, you are expected to write all the points that are listed. Then let's look at page 32. Here largely they are talking about sources for Mauryan history. This most likely will come for 3 marks. They could add a tag question to it and make it 3 marks, and make it 8 marks, where they could tag it with Mauryan administration perhaps. What are the sources to understand Mauryan administration? So when you answer a question like this, usually my tip is that you divide your answer into 2 parts. One is archaeological sources and the other is literary sources. When you talk about archaeological sources, it would range from coins to inscriptions to pottery to weapons that there may have been found or architectural features that we may have unearthed. And when you look at possibilities of literary sources, then you further subdivide them into secular and religious literature. Religious literature would include your Jain and Buddhist texts, Dharma Sutras, for example, and secular texts would include travelogues like Megasthenes' Indica and the Kautilya's Arthashastra. Page 32 to 34 deal with modern administration, and they talk about different aspects of modern administration. They talk about organization of the army or provincial capitals. So you are expected to write about all of that. It also includes a quick section on Ashoka's propagating of Dhamma and how he appointed Dhamma Mahamattas. So this could come as a 1 marker objective type question, 3 marks, or even 8 marks, and it could be tagged with another question. Page number 36, you have a section on divine kings. This is nothing else but how the kings demanded or how the kings claimed high status. So it ranges from picking up titles like Devaputra, the sons of God, or giving large land grants, or even reconstructed from literature, for example, from Prashastis, and how the Prashastis would describe the king in hyperbole and what a great man he was, that he was equal to the gods, and so on. So, what were the different ways in which kings derived legitimacy and high status? So, this could come as a 1 marker objective question or even 3 marks. Page 37, you have the Prayag Prashasti. Most likely, this could be asked as a source based question. But if they are talking about claiming legitimacy, uh, do use the example of the Prayag Prashasti and how it describes the emperor as one of these greatest men who has no parallels. Moving to page 38 to 39, here you are moving into the countryside or in the rural areas, and here look at the role of Panchatantra and the texts like Gandatindu Jataka to understand the perspective of the common people. So you could get a question like that what are the sources of understanding the history of the subalterns or the common people. So in this sense, in this context, you can bring in Panchatantra and Gandatindu Jataka. Then there is also a quick section on strategies to increase crop production. So there are about 3 or 4 different techniques and technologies mentioned here. So you will talk about those. And then there is on page 39 a discussion on social stratification in rural areas in South India. For example, the Uzavars, Velalas, Gahapatis, and so on. So these could again come as 1 marker objective questions or as 3 mark questions. Then when we look at pages 40 to 41, you have the concept of land grants and why they were given. And yes, Prabhavati Gupta is very, very important, and why her land grant is considered to be so exceptional. So it could come as a 3 marker, an 8 marker, or even as a source based question, because we do have a paragraph on Prabhavati Gupta in page 41. Pages 42 to 43, here you've come back into the cities and towns, and we're talking about trade. So you could be asked about items of trade as objective type questions or even as 3 markers. You can be asked to describe guilds and what their rules were, again as 3 markers perhaps. And then there is something called a votive inscription. Votive inscription most likely will come as an objective type question, as to you may be asked to define what a votive inscription is. Then pages 45 to 46 is about numismatics and how can we use coins to stitch together the story of the past. It could vary from your dynasties and their succession can be established. It could even help you determine sizes of kingdoms, routes of trade, trading links with which culture, so a whole lot of things. And there is also another part as to who issued coins, so not just kings or kings of large empires, but also smaller tribal kingdoms. In fact, we also have many cases where guilds are also minting coins. So again, this section could be coming for 1 mark objective type, 3 marks, or 8 markers. Then you have pages 46 to 47. Here we are coming back into script and deciphering the Brahmi and the Kharoshti scripts by James Princip. So what is Kharoshti? How was Kharoshti deciphered could be a question. And what are the kind of information that we get from Ashokan inscriptions? Yes, so this can be quite an important concept. So this could range from 1 mark objective type question to 3 marks. They could also make into an 8 mark question provided they add a tag question to this, but on their own, I don't think they will ask about just Ashokan inscriptions for 8 marks. Then we have page 48. Here they talk about limitations of using inscriptional evidence. So you will talk about the technical problems or the language issues, or problems of interpreting or actually translation of issues, right? So this has come in the past, but they've not asked this question, I think, last year. But it's a very favorite question that has been coming quite often in the board exam. So you might want to look at this as well. So this could come as a 3-mark question. They might frame it as a 1-mark objective type question as well. As we come to the end of today's module, I would exhort you to like and share this video, to subscribe to my channel, and also to click on the bell icon so you can get notifications whenever a new video is being posted. I'm also adding the link to the closed Facebook group that we have, where we discuss a lot of questions, to join that. And if you have any specific questions from this chapter, please don't hesitate to ask in the comment section. I will get back to you and answer the question to the best of my abilities. This slide deck was made using Slides Mania, which provides free themes and templates for Google Slides or PowerPoint. So you can also make and jazz up your PowerPoint or Google Slides presentations using templates from Slides Mania. So with this, I'm going to sign out till the next time. Bye bye.